Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 54 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media /the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag for a 200% sign up bonus. Please visit MyBookie and use the promo code ODDS200. Terms and conditions and location apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs, sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member for $17.99 a month. You can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. Well, we had a good college football Saturday, but then a bad NFL Sunday. It's kind of how it works out sometimes. Lost some coin flips type situations, 2-point conversions with personal fouls on them, and long field goals that made it. Defenses imploding. A lot of the plays that we gave out were pretty much came down to the final play or end to the game, except for the Giants. We lost that one fair and square. The Giants lost to the second string of the San Francisco 49ers at home after San Fran is in a double travel spot. And the other bad one was the Denver Broncos that couldn't even get back into the game. The rest of them were very close, but no excuses. We are going to get build up for the next week. Our free picks in the NFL went 1 out of 2, but our college free picks went 3-1, so that's good. As far as our bow to the gambling gods 6-team money line parlay, that thing hit. And with all of the college turmoil that happened last week, I'm really happy it hit. Lots of huge upsets in college. That parlay paid 3.25 to 1, so that was the shining moment, at least, of yesterday. We had the two biggest favorites in that parlay money line on the Colts and the Cleveland Browns. But let's get into a little quick recap on both sports here. Miami versus Florida State. I mean, I had to go on a limb to take Miami. A lot of money came back on Florida State. We took them at a bad number at minus 11.5, but that thing hit with ease. Wasn't even worried about it the whole game. I mean, Miami they were what I thought they were, as Denny Green would say. They way better than Florida State. Florida State couldn't catch up to them. Florida State couldn't stop them. Florida State looked terrible on offense, right? It was just one of those situations where I don't care what the trends say. The trends were all saying, well, the road team has won 8 out of 9 games, whatever it is. The road team is covered, blah, blah, blah. Nope. Sorry, different situation here. Miami's way better than Florida State, and all those past games, the teams were probably pretty close. So I'm glad I went out on a limb on that one. The Auburn game was real nice to win. Not sure how much we deserved it. Stoops kind of screwed up at the end a little bit, but Auburn is a young team for the most part, so was glad that it was able to come into fruition. There might be a misleading score there a little bit too when we get into that segment of misleading final scores. LSU. That thing was a great just a great game to watch with Mississippi State. How about Mike Leach with Mississippi State winning 44-34 against the champion LSU team? Well, remember I said I had to drop LSU 16 points in my power ratings before the season. It was probably one of the biggest drops I've ever made, especially to a Power 5 school. Well, I had to drop them a little bit more after this first week. But at the same time, you also had to raise Mississippi State up for what they did. Did a fantastic job and literally went into Baton Rouge and beat the world champs. So huge day for them. KJ Costello, 36 for 60 pass attempts, 5 interceptions, 2 TDs. Miles Brennan, 27 out of 46, 345 yards, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions. Neither of them ran the ball all much. As a matter of fact, Mississippi State only had 16 rushing yards. That's typical Mike Leach. And LSU had 38 carries for 80 rushing yards, so not a ton either. Was happy that Leach stayed true to himself because we took the over 57, and that hit. I mean, it started out super slow. 3 points scored in the first quarter got me worried a little bit, and then all of a sudden they stepped on the gas the whole game, and the over 57 hit with ease. So was really happy about that. 8-4 total, what we had for our college football record on Saturday. Let's talk about Kansas State versus Oklahoma. Can't believe this happened 2 years in a row in Norman. Just an amazing job from Kansas State. Skylar Thompson, 18 for 25, 334 yards. I mean, this is after Kansas State lost to Arkansas State at home, too. I mean, this is just college football, baby. You got to love it, you know. Just amazing. Spencer Rattler, 387 yards, 4 TDs, yet 3 interceptions. That killed them right there, was the 3 interceptions, and that was why Kansas State was able to upset Oklahoma. I was texting with Chris Felica and let him know that our Iowa State to win the Big 12 ticket is back from the land of the lost and forgotten. Was pretty happy to have that. Now Iowa State's going to be playing Oklahoma at home this weekend, and that's going to be probably the game, one of the key games that I key in on, minus Auburn versus Georgia. Yep, Auburn covered the spread, took care of business there. Some stupid turnovers from Kentucky in that awful fake punt. That was just terrible by Stoops there, but I thought Terry Wilson played pretty well, 24 of 37. He had a TD, you know. It's just the turnovers killed him. 1 TD and 1 interception. Bo Nix, 3 TDs, 0 interceptions. So Bo Nix kind of was inconsistent, 16 for 27, 233 yards, but he ended up doing a pretty good job and good enough to win that game. And Kentucky is what everybody else kind of said. They really did win the battle in the trenches against Auburn. They just kind of got away from what got them there and got away from running the ball and stuff like that. I think if Kentucky might have run the ball the whole time, we might have lost that bet. But I made my adjustments properly. Texas was in a shootout with Texas Tech. Texas Tech was up by like 16 points with like 3 minutes left and somehow gave it all back, and Texas was able to come back and win in overtime. What a crumble by Texas Tech. I am shocked that they did that. But just like I said earlier, that's college football, baby. Sam Ehlinger, 27 for 40, 262 yards. What did it well for Texas was their rushing game, 214 yards on the ground there. Vanderbilt really held their own against Texas A&M. As I said, I was down on Texas A&M compared to other people before the season started. Well, Texas A&M only beat Vanderbilt by 5 points at home. So that should tell you something right there. Cincinnati versus Army. If you listen to Ralph Michaels and I on the podcast, this is exactly why we didn't want to touch this game. Cincinnati knew how to play the triple option. Army only scored 10 points. Cincinnati got enough to tie the initial spread. If you bet Army late at plus 13, you lost that bet. Almost had a middle on Oklahoma State versus West Virginia. That last touchdown Chuba Hubbard ran in. He could have downed it at the 1, and they could have won. That was the proper play to do it. Don't just get the first down and down it, but the kid's going to get a touchdown, right? He's looking for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, it's early in the season. He's not going to do anything like logically, I guess. He's not going to look at the game and say, I'm not going to score here because we're not going to allow West Virginia to have the ball back, which all they had to do was take a knee up by 7. Oh, well, that situation is going to happen, but we had a nice middle option on that, but it just didn't come to fruition. BYU destroys Troy 48-7. I really like BYU this year. Louisiana, the team that beat Iowa State, had a scare against Georgia Southern, only winning 20-18. Virginia Tech takes care of business for us. We took that late. And we've got that under on Pittsburgh versus Louisville. I was a little worried about that. No points were scored in the fourth quarter, and only 6 points were scored in the third quarter. That thing was trending over until the second half. I kind of think that Pittsburgh is going to be, or is already, an unders team. Let's go into the NFL for this weekend, and or for last weekend. And unfortunately, the officials, once again,
oh man, I have no idea what's going on.
Horrible. They were calling false starts when the defenses were jumping offsides first to draw the offense, to make that reaction, you're about to get hit. And they were calling offsides when the offensive guy was the first one to have the false start. It was that bad. Twice catches were made that were taken away on the ground that they just gave it to the defense on replay with zero evidence whatsoever. Our Buffalo win, I'm not even sure if that should have been a win because I didn't see the pass interference that they called at the end of that game. Actually, it was the receiver that drew the contact against the cornerback. He jammed the cornerback right there. Another awful call, changing the outcomes of the game. I mean, that's the NFL for you. A lot of things just kind of come down to how the game's going to be dictated, and you just hope that you're on the right side of the variance. But at the same time, lots of crazy things happened in the NFL. No major upsets, as you could see through a spread, but the Packers did beat the Saints, and I am mad that I didn't bet it. A lot of my leans went through last week. One of those weeks that you didn't bet the leans. And I did lean the Packers to possibly cover that 3-point spread and possibly win. And unfortunately, lots of people I actually look up to and listen to were on the Saints. So one of those situations where I kind of wish I would have just shut my ears there. That's going to happen from time to time, but for the most part, the guys I listen to are right. So no quarrels from me, staying away from that one. The NFL, it's kind of its own beast. It's, what logically shouldn't happen doesn't, and it's all because of, some of the things I've mentioned before. Teams, you have teams like Kansas City that go to L.A., almost get beat by the Chargers, literally have to go to overtime, and then you have the Carolina Panthers go to L.A. and beat the Chargers, one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, that's the NFL for you right there. And that's why there's a lot of people betting the Jets this weekend. But unfortunately for them, the Jets couldn't even come close to covering that spread. Absolute garbage. One of our losses was the Dallas Cowboys against the Seahawks. It happened at the very end, had that +5, had that 2-point conversion, not get that call for Russell Wilson, roughing Russell Wilson when the front of his face mask hit Russell Wilson. Russell flops a little bit and you get the call. So that was one of those coin flippers that it could have pushed on at least. Dallas defense implodes, gives up the long play from Russell Wilson. Dallas absolutely has zero pass rush, guys. Zero. That's how bad this game was. It had overwritten all over it. I was a little worried about the weather, but like Kyle said on our Friday show, and if you haven't seen our show, please check out the Odds Breakers on Twitch and the Odds Breakers on YouTube. Please like our channel. Kyle and I will have a show every week. It's going to be a little bit earlier this week on Thursday due to I'm going to be heading out on vacation for a week. I still will be doing podcasts though, so no worries there, and we will be giving you our picks. So what else happened here? The Titans are 3-0, yet they're 0-3 against the spread. They escape a close one in Minnesota. That's kind of just how the Titans have been playing. Every single team close. The Patriots destroyed the Raiders at home pretty much. The Raiders just didn't have an answer. It was a terrible spot for the Raiders, and I regret not taking the fat spread on the Patriots -6. I could have got the Patriots -6 there. And a lot of people I respect did take it, and that's one that I should have taken with them just because it was just such a bad spot for the Raiders on a short week after the win against the Saints with a long travel spot. Everything just kind of made sense, but my power ratings just didn't have it there. It was like 3 or 4 points. I think I had the Patriots by 4 or something like that. So I wasn't quite there, but huge mistake there. Like I said, the Giants couldn't even beat the 49ers second string at home. I don't know what that says. It says a lot about Kyle Shanahan, and that was my biggest worry about taking the Giants. Kyle Shanahan's just a damn good coach. Just extremely knowledgeable about football. He can get guys motivated. He gets the best out of guys. His schemes are just better than everybody else's, literally, on offense. He doesn't have a Mahomes. He doesn't have a Lamar Jackson, a Russell Wilson. He doesn't have anything like that, Tom Brady. He just has his amazing system, and he makes it work over there, and that's how they won. I want to talk about something extremely pathetic that happened in the NFL last week. Just a disgrace to anything competitive. Doug Peterson and the Eagles, instead of going for a 62-yard field goal, it should have been like a 57-yard field goal, but they got a false start. They punt the ball to take the tie. They punt the frickin' ball to take the tie with only a few seconds left in this game.
Unreal.
I mean, against the Bengals. Against the frickin' Bengals, they decide to not try a long field goal. Is this a fireable offense?
You're fired.
I cannot believe Doug Pearson did that, and he heard it from the media hard. I can't imagine what this must be like to be an Eagles fan seeing that crap. But everything I've been kind of hinting at that maybe it wasn't Doug Peterson so good, Mr. I wrote a book after I conquered adversity and won the Super Bowl. Maybe it wasn't so much him, and maybe it was his awesome assistants like Frank Reich, John DeFilippo. Maybe it was those guys running the show there, because Doug Peterson has been looking absolutely terrible there, and you wonder what he has to be on to make such a bad decision.
I'm so high right now.
Don't go for the win against the Bengals at home. I mean, you should have just took the loss. It was almost better in the eyes of your fans to let the Bengals have a shot to get into field goal range with those couple seconds left rather than take a frickin' tie.
I'm so high right now.
I mean, how can you deal with yourself the next day knowing that you sallied out on such a huge opportunity to get that first win? Absolutely unreal. Speaking of bad coaches, my Chicago Bears came back with Nick Foles to win at Atlanta, down by 16 points in the fourth quarter, beats them like he's leading the old Eagles to the Super Bowl.
Unreal.
How do these coaches still have a job? How does Dan Quinn still have a job in Atlanta? Nobody's ever given up a 17 points the week before and then 16 points that week ever in the history of football to lose 2 weeks in a row. Yeah. But at the same time, huge credit to the Bears and finally putting Nick Foles in. Nick Foles as a starter, though, I'm not going to get too excited yet. He's looked wishy-washy and up and down as a starter, unless he's in the playoffs, of course. So we'll see what happens when he changes role from coming in to save the day to an actual starting quarterback. But at the same time, you saw that Mitch Trubisky left way too many points on the field, way too many open receivers out there that he's missing, throwing into double coverage, horrible picks, and not using his legs like he did 2 years ago. 2 years ago when he ran for 500 yards on the ground, that's what we needed to see. If you can't throw the ball, kid, run for the first down. And that's where that's the reason why he lost his job.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
Well, another terrible coach, Bill O'Brien, had all the opportunity to beat Pittsburgh, winning the game. And not only does he blow that game in the second half, he also can't even cover the spread for his fans. How the hell is he still coaching?
You're fired.
Then obviously Adam Gase with the poor and lowly Jets. I mean, at least they have a bunch of injuries to blame it on. And maybe there is something with that field in New York at MetLife Stadium. But at the same time, just Darnold looking awful. The Colts were my fantasy defense in one of my 3 leagues, and they scored more points than most of my team with those pick 6 touchdowns. And obviously the sacks that they got against Darnold. The Jets don't even look like a professional football team right now. And the weirdest thing is neither do the Giants. I don't know which team is worse. Denver's going up there right now, and they're actually favored. That's how bad. Injury-devastated Denver is favored by 3 points at the Jets. That should blow your mind right there. You know, the Jets are completely out of their league right now, and we are waiting on a 10-1 play that we have that the Jets are the last team to not win a game during the 2020 NFL season. All right, well, that's enough talking about these poor bastards. Let's get into a little college football. Week 5 motivational spots here. And there's a lot of bye weeks in college this year because of COVID. And it does hurt the spots in general, but I definitely found some coming in for this week. So we'll start with letdown spots. Kansas State hosting Texas Tech after beating Oklahoma is a real letdown spot. Mississippi State hosting Arkansas after beating LSU is a bona fide letdown spot. And Texas at TCU went to overtime versus Texas Tech is somewhat of a letdown spot because you have the overtime, right? It's a little extra work there. Get up spots. Duke hosting Virginia Tech. Duke's got to wake up here. I think they had over 5 turnovers last game. They really got to step up here at home against Virginia Tech. Kentucky hosting Ole Miss after that horrible second half versus Auburn. Kentucky is in a get-up spot. Oklahoma at Iowa State has to be motivated here. And you wonder the position that they're in. Iowa State's got more experience and offense there with Brock Purdy, right? More than Spencer Rattler. This is going to be an interesting game. Some money already came in on Iowa State. I didn't touch it yet, but we'll see what happens. LSU at Vanderbilt's kind of a get-up spot. They need to fix some things. And Southern Miss at North Texas. Maybe blindly bet the over there. Southern Miss has been pathetic this year, but North Texas only had one game and against SMU. They don't look that good either. Look ahead spots. Clemson looking past Virginia to Miami is a huge one. You know, Clemson knows Miami's better now. I'm sure the kids watched that game on TV. UNC looking past Boston College to Virginia Tech is a legit look ahead spot. Virginia Tech looking past Duke to North Carolina is a certainly sandwich spot here if they're playing Duke. Well, I wouldn't say sandwich. It's not like they accomplished much by beating NC State, but it's a look ahead spot. Texas looking past TCU to Oklahoma is very, very possible. Tennessee looking past Missouri to Georgia is a look ahead spot. Now let's get into our college football misleading final scores. Middle Tennessee State versus UTSA. Middle Tennessee State outgained UTSA 563 to 391, yet lost by 2 points. A 2-1 turnover ratio hurt. Some of that was garbage time, though. Georgia Tech versus Syracuse. Georgia Tech outgained Syracuse 453 yards to 357, yet lost by 17. A 5-1 turnover ratio absolutely killed them, right? Syracuse is not that good. Kansas State versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma outgained Kansas State 517 to 400, and yet a 4-0 turnover ratio did Oklahoma in. Still, though, that number was too high. If you remember, Kyle and I talked about it. My number was 21.5. That thing was like at 28, 29 when it closed. Kentucky versus Auburn. Kentucky outgained Auburn 384 to 324, but a 3-0 turnover ratio, and that stupid fake punt did it in for Kentucky. Florida versus Ole Miss. Florida almost outgained Florida 446 to 443. But lots of those yards were garbage, so no adjustment on this. This was not really misleading because the garbage yards of Ole Miss trying to come back here. And I say that it's not like they were completely out of the game, but they're enough out of the game, really, for Florida to let their defense down. So I wanted to mention that. FIU versus Liberty. Liberty outgained FIU 527 to 304, yet only won by 2 points. No turnover margin whatsoever. So there you go. Liberty, this one hurt. This one would have made a really nice weekend if we hit Liberty. Liberty outgained them by 223 yards, yet only won by 2. That was brutal. But special teams did play a role in that one. Iowa State versus TCU. TCU outgained Iowa State 499 to 423, yet lost by 3 at home. 2-1 turnover ratio hurt TCU. West Virginia versus Oklahoma State. West Virginia outgained the Pokes 353 to 342, yet lost by 14 points. And that unnecessary TD at the end ruined my middle. Texas State versus Boston College. Texas State outgained Boston College 357 to 297, yet lost by 3 at the end. The officials actually fixed that game for Boston College. If you watched the end of it, please watch the last 5 minutes of that game and try to tell me different. Every time the Texas State tackled Boston College, they somehow got a targeting call on them using their shoulder, not even their head. Kansas versus Baylor. Baylor only outgained Kansas 352 to 328, yet won 47 to 14. No turnovers whatsoever. So I could not believe that Kansas was only outgained by 24 yards, yet lost 47 to 14. Pathetic. Let's get into NFL. And NFL misleading final scores. Jaguars outgained the Dolphins 318 to 294, yet lost 31 to 13. Some garbage yards there. The LA Rams outgained the Bills 478 to 375, yet lost by 3. That was that, like I mentioned before, I'm not sure if the Rams should have lost that game with that pass interference that they called. Washington outgained the Browns 309 to 300, but a 5-0 turnover ratio killed them. Absolutely. LA Chargers outgained the Panthers 436 to 302, yet lost by 5. A 4-0 turnover ratio really hurt them. The Cardinals outgained the Lions 377 to 322, yet lost by 3 points. A 3-0 turnover ratio hurt for mainly Kyler Murray. Threw a lot of picks that game. The Cowboys outgained the Seahawks 522 to 412, yet lost 38 to 31. What else is new? There should have been another turnover there. Dak Prescott 3-1 turnover ratio. There's one lucky bounce off the Seattle defender and right into the hands, I think it was of Michael Gallup, and they should have lost possibly even by more. But one thing I will say is that Dak Prescott isn't worth $20 million, much less $40 million. He's just a very average quarterback to me. You saw the difference between $40 million type Russell Wilson that game, that will win the game, and then you see Dak Prescott kind of dancing around there, throwing haphazardly. That's the difference right there between these two quarterbacks. All right, motivational spots, letdown spots. Packers could let down to the Falcons after beating the Saints. Just remember that one. The Panthers got that first W, could let down a little bit versus the Cardinals. Happens sometimes after a first W, but don't put too much into that. The Lions got that first win at the Cardinals as a dog. That could be a slight letdown spot against the Saints. Let's see if the Lions can handle success. Get up spots. Saints at the Lions after losing 2 in a row. So the Saints are in a very motivational spot here to get back to 500. Trust me when I say that for Sean Payton. And just want to say any team without a win is dangerous here. 0-3 team. Be careful when betting against 0-3 teams. Look ahead spots, I really have none right now. All right, now let's get into a free play for We'll do NFL this time. NFL Week 4, and we're going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Cincinnati Bengals +3, and it's at some +100s, what I saw, so pretty much even money on that 3. I don't know what exactly Cincinnati did to deserve to be a 3-point favorite at home when we're not even sure home field advantage is 3 points. How are they better already than the Jaguars here? They have one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. They do have Joe Burrow, but they're not exactly winning games here. They tied against the Eagles, mostly because the Eagles pretty much just crumbled that whole game and how injured the Eagles were. And then you have the Jaguars here that just came off that horrible loss against the Dolphins. They have over 10 days now to prepare for this one game. Lots of time to prepare. The Jaguars did have more yards than the Dolphins last game as well. So far, very small sample size. The Jaguars did well as a dog against the Titans, and the Jaguars did well as a dog against the Colts. The Jaguars didn't do well as a favorite against the Dolphins, but they're coming in as a dog to Cincinnati here. So I know DJ Chark's been hurt, but if he gets back, it's even going to be a little bit of a bonus here. I think their running back James Robinson is going to have a fantastic game and a field day against that terrible Cincinnati defense. I like it for 2.5 stars here. Grab that sucker, and let's see if we can take this one home. Always remember to sprinkle that money line.
Soon as he buy that wine, I just creep up from behind.
Before we get into a little fantasy football, I'd be hard-pressed not to mention the Campbell Fighting Camels football team, as requested from one of our listeners named Jason. Campbell is, I believe, 3-0 against the spread. They almost beat Georgia Southern back on September 12th, 27-26. They covered against Coastal Carolina, I believe, as a 26-point dog. And then they cover against Appalachian State as a 34-point dog, only losing by 30. And this is a pissed off Appalachian State, too, because Appalachian State was just coming off of Marshall. Now Campbell gets to go and play Wake Forest this weekend. And Wake Forest, very good chance that they don't take this Fighting Camels team seriously and just might be looking ahead a little bit to Virginia. Being that Campbell is an FCS team located in Booze Creek, North Carolina, I don't study them a lot, but I'd certainly be hard-pressed not to put a few bucks on the Fighting Camels facing Wake Forest coming up this weekend. Now it is time for a little fantasy football with our guy, D Nasty. All right, now it's time for a little fantasy football week 4. We got our guy, D Nasty, back to break down a huge weekend of fantasy, and obviously we have a huge recap from week 3. Dave, how the hell you doing?
Great week of football.
Yeah, man, a lot of action this week. Not as many injuries, thank God, but there was some certain teams that rose above to the occasion, and we just watched one of them, the Kansas City Chiefs, as a dog, go into Baltimore and win. The Packers go into the Saints, the Dome, as a win, and you must be happy for that. And my Chicago Bears go to the Mercedes-Benz Dome and beat the Atlanta Falcons. How about those teams going to the domes this week? That was pretty awesome. Gotta be happy, man. Bears and Packers. Who knew that the Bears and the Packers would be 3-0 at this point after kind of seeing who they had to face?
Yeah, exactly. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, because people were higher on the Vikings. People thought they'd lose to the Vikings that first week. The Bears were supposed to lose at least one of these games, and no, just turned out pretty well. And the Bears now finally made a quarterback change to Nick Foles, and I'm pretty excited about it, as you can probably imagine, Dave.
Yes. Especially after the performance he had in the second half this last week.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There's Nick Foles coming off the bench, and Nick Foles as a starter. As a starter, I've seen it, and it wasn't as pretty sometimes. I don't know. It's all a mindset thing, kind of like how Jeff Driscoll played well against Pittsburgh coming off the bench, and then he's named the starter and just gets his ass kicked by Tom Brady in a not that great Tampa Bay secondary, So it's we'll see what Foles does. I don't want to get too excited, but I do know that Mitch left a lot of points on the field. There's open guys he missed. The Bears should have been scoring more points the last couple of years. Can you agree?
Well, I agree, but there's a reason why Foles has been on 4 or 5 different teams as well, too.
Yeah, he's been on a lot of different teams, which tells you no one's really committed that much to him. I mean, look at the Eagles. He wins the Super Bowl for the Eagles. The Eagles choose Carson Wentz because of everything they invested in him. Nick Foles is a freaking statue there for out there, and look at Carson Wentz now. It's not looking pretty. You wonder if this will be the year Foles just looks amazing, then Carson Wentz doesn't, and how Eagles fans are going to enjoy that one. So that's what I'm hoping for, obviously. But right now Carson Wentz, to me, is still a really good player, but the Eagles are in shambles right now. I don't know what the hell's going on with that team, man.
Well, they started out slow last year, too. I think they started 0-3 or 0-4 last year, but then they made the playoffs, so you never know.
Wow, I didn't know it was 0-2 or 0-3. I can't remember, but maybe we'll see what happens. They need get a lot of guys back because they have lots of injuries, Dave. And speaking of injuries, there's your segue into our key injuries, Dave. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Sounds good. Weren't as many injuries as last week, thank God. There was a few key ones this week, though. Chris Carson left after a disputed call and tackle by the defensive tackle from the Cowboys. He could be out 1 to 2 weeks with a sprained knee. Dallas Goedert, tight end for the Eagles, has an ankle injury. They're saying he's going to miss at least a few weeks. He's still going in for an MRI on that. Wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, who's normally injured as well. Hopefully you weren't starting him. He was ruled out with hamstring and ankle injuries. Jordan Reed, who's just a walking injury. He's had a knee and ankle injury. They said he could be out 4 to 6 weeks with that injury. A couple key defensive guys that went out too. Jamal Adams suffered a groin strain. He's going to miss at least this week. And then some of you guys in the IDP leagues might have had Chase Young, a groin injury as well. So those are 2 key IDP guys. Another guy that I had in one of my dynasty leagues, Russell Gage, who's been playing well, left with a concussion. He's probably doubtful for this week, but maybe back after this week. Deontay Johnson did not return against the Texans after being evaluated for a concussion as well. Brian Edwards, a nice young rookie for the Las Vegas Raiders, left with an ankle injury. He's getting an MRI as well. Buffalo Bills starting wide receiver John Brown, left with a calf injury. He's doubtful probably for this week as well, but we'll see about him. Chicago Bears running back, that 3-0 team we were just talking about, Tariq Cohen. It's going to be a big loss for them, I think, because he's a nice receiving back out of the backfield. ACL, kind of our theme from last week, he's going to be lost for the year. So he's done for the rest of the year. Michael Pittman exited with an ankle injury. They said he's going to miss multiple weeks. They're not saying how many weeks yet. Chris Godwin suffered a hamstring injury. I think that was pretty minor, though. So he should hopefully play this week. But keep an eye on him. And then another key wide receiver, Mike Williams, left with a hamstring injury. He might be doubtful for this week, so keep an eye on that one as well.
You had them all. That's everybody I had, man. And I wonder how bad John Brown is. That's a key one for me. Chris Godwin, is this thing going to be kind of week to week, always with him throughout the year?
Yeah, it's a nagging one, I think. Yeah, those hamstrings are just hard to heal. Those take a couple weeks to heal. at least 4 weeks.
I'll tell you, with Michael Pittman and now Paris Campbell, and now Michael Pittman out, what I'm trying to say, Paris Campbell went out the week before for Indy. You wonder who they're going to throw it to. I guess T.Y. Hilton, but that's
Zach Pascal.
There you go, Zach Pascal. And there's some good news for the Bears, but I guess that kind of leads us into our waiver wire, Dave. Well, obviously Zach Pascal is one to pick up here, and if T.Y. Hilton for some reason's out there, obviously grab him, but he should be owned. But some people might have dropped him. He hasn't had that great of a start to the year. Ryan Nall for the Cohen injury, and I wonder if the Bears shop a little bit for another running back here. Montgomery is going to probably pick up all the pass plays, actually, which makes Montgomery worth more for the Bears, in my opinion.
Definitely.
So Montgomery gets a big boost here from what happened there. You got to pick up Carson Hyde for the Chris Carson injury. I don't know if they play Chris Carson this week against Miami. I mean,
I think they said at least 1 to 2 weeks for him that he's going to be out for sure.
Yeah, but they wouldn't rush him back even if he could go against Miami. You know, you're going to roll the dice, right? You're gonna roll the dice with your rest of your guys. You're not going to put your main guys in. Rex Burkhead had some great TDs this week, but I wonder if James White's going to take some of that back, when he comes back. But White might be out again because his mom could still be in critical condition there. Hopefully she's not, from that awful car accident that her and James White's dad obviously went through. His dad died, so that was really sad.
That was tragic.
Very tragic. And, a lot of our Badger alumni friends have been talking about that one, being James White was a Badger. Cedric Wilson, somehow, I don't know how, Dave, somehow this man got 7 targets on the Cowboys and 2 TDs,
Yeah, I'm not too high. Yeah, a grain of salt with him. There's just the one-hit wonders or one-week wonders, and he might be one of those where he might have a few catches next week, but I want to put too much stock or too many budget dollars into him if you're bidding for him.
And I wrote speculative, so took the words out of my mouth. He if you're in a deep league or a dynasty league, you might want to try that. But with CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, and Amari Cooper there, it's like, how the heck did he even get open? Or even get to play? But good for him. 7 targets was a little surprising for me. Nick Foles. Now, Nick Foles there's a lot of upside with this quarterback. What I don't like is the Colts do have a good pass defense. I'm not sure if you're not desperate, you pick up Nick Foles, but you don't start him this week, in my opinion. I think you let him sit for a week.
Unless you're in a 2-quarterback league. There are a lot of 2-quarterback leagues out there now. So if a 2-quarterback league, I definitely would start him this week.
Well, if that's the case, then pick up Nick Mullins, because Jimmy G might be out for a little while. And Nick Mullins, he played really good. Just like I said last week, he might be better than Jimmy G. I find that interesting, but I think they paid Jimmy G something over there now. So, unfortunately, money talks and bullshit walks. So, Jimmy will get his job back, but I don't know. Nick Mullins is a capable backup quarterback, and that's why San Fran didn't trade him when everybody wanted to trade him over the offseason this year. I got Jimmy Graham, tight end, 2 touchdowns, and now with the better QB, his upside's higher now for Jimmy Graham. So I find that one interesting. Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver, at least until Deebo Samuel comes back, but maybe even longer. Maybe you keep him around longer. Hunter Renfrow with the Edwards injury, the Bryan Edwards injury. Renfrow had a lot of targets last game, and he should get a lot more coming into this week against Buffalo. And I expect him to probably be down, some of this game, right? I expect them to be throwing the ball a lot still in Las Vegas. Greg Ward, he got lots of targets, 11 targets last week for the Eagles. He also got in the end zone, but will he be the same when Rhaegar and Jeffrey comes back? I hear Jeffrey might be coming back to practice this week. I don't know. So if Alshon Jeffrey happens to be on your waivers just because people didn't want to roster him, he might be a good one to pick up too, Dave. What do you have?
All right, great. So I do have actually a couple of Chicago Bears, actually, which you'll like. Cordell Patterson, he might take over that Tariq Cohen role. So if he's out there on waivers, he's only owned in 7% of leagues right now. Definitely scoop him up. Anthony Miller, he's actually been playing well, and with Nick Foles starting now too, his stock's going to go up a little bit. Only owned in 46% of leagues right now. The big pickup of the week, who had a monster game this last week, Justin Jefferson, only owned in 30% of leagues. He had touchdown and over 170 yards receiving, and he had quite a few targets as well. So if anyone did drop him or didn't draft him, definitely pick up Justin Jefferson. Another rookie you might want to take a look at, Chase Claypool. He's been playing well. If no one has him, only owning 14% of leagues this week. So a couple young wide receivers who have been playing well. Might possibly break out over the next couple weeks. If you're looking for a tight end, Mo Cox, I know we talked about last week, but even with Jack Doyle back, he still had 3 targets and against 0 for Doyle, so he might be the main guy there now. And Robert Tonyan, he looked good this week with Devontae Adams out. He had a touchdown and 5 catches for over 50 yards, so definitely a tight end that you can plug in if you need a tight end this week. Adrian Peterson, old man AP, he keeps getting it done. He had 20-plus carries for the Lions. He had a pretty decent game, so if you need a running back, you can definitely plug him in. Or Frank Gore, another old-timer who's still just rounding, kicking, and putting up numbers. So if you need a running back to plug in this week, Frank Gore, Adrian Peterson are going to get the majority of the carries for both those teams. A couple rookies you might want to take a look at, Anthony McFarland Jr. and J.J. Taylor for the New England Patriots. 2 young running backs who got some carries this past week games, and they did look very good. So 2 younger guys might want to just put on as for stashes on your bench. And then another guy too, Travis Homer. He runs a 4.49, young running back for the Seattle Seahawks. He could take a lot of carries away from Carlos Hyde, and I do really like him, and they do like him there as well. So he did get some carries when Carson went out late in the game. So he might be the one that takes over the carries there, or he can at least have a timeshare with Carlos Hyde this upcoming week. And then my last one is actually going to be just a speculative ad. Don't have to go out and try and get this guy, but we were just talking about Carson Wentz. He entered the week dead last in full-time quarterback rankings, so they might actually pull the trigger on him or just try to give Jalen Hurts a little more playing time. But Jalen Hurts, if you're in 2-quarterback league or when your bye weeks start coming up later on, he might be a guy you might want to take a look at down the road here.
Look at that one, pulling out the Jalen Hurts. Oh, hurts to be an Eagles fan, man. Must be. This segment's brought to you by Thrive Fantasy DFS, your fantasy game for prop bets. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com/ThriveDFS to pick up an up to $50 bonus. Now, good job, Dave. That's a lot of them right there. Let's move right into week 4 non-starters trending up, and I'll let you start, Dave.
All right, great. One guy I have right here, the Ravens, after they got crushed tonight by the Kansas City Chiefs, they just got demolished. I think they're going to come back with a vengeance against Washington next week, the Washington football team. I look for Dobbins and Mark Ingram to both have good games next week against the Washington football team. I do like that matchup a lot. Buccaneers, I do look for Ronald Jones Jr., or Ronald Jones III. He did get a majority of the carries this past week over Leonard Fournette. I look for him to have a good game against the Chargers, even though the Chargers do have a good defense. They're playing at Tampa, so I do like that matchup. I'm going to be starting both running backs for the Seahawks as well. Carlos Hyde is definitely a start this week against the poor Dolphins defense. And then the Texans, David Johnson, who you probably might be starting in some leagues, but definitely a start against this week against the Vikings. Their young defense and a lot of their guys have a lot of injuries and young guys on their defense. Their defense has not looked good these first 2-3 games. So definitely plug in David Johnson there, and even Will Fuller if he's healthy as well. I do like the Saints, Emmanuel Sanders. And if Michael Thomas is back, he's definitely a start. But Emmanuel Sanders did come on at the end of the second half of that Saints game. I do like him against the Lions defense. Cowboys have just looked horrible on defense too. So actually, I'm going to say Jarvis Landry and Nick Chubb and both Kareem Hunt are going to be must starts this week against the Cowboys defense.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And then my last one's going to be the Eagles. Actually, I'm going to say I like them against the beat-up 49ers defense. They have no defensive line right now, so definitely Miles Sanders is a starter. If you're not starting him already, you probably are. But definitely he's going to be a guy I really, really like this week against the 49ers.
All right. Well, I have a few of those, obviously. Carlos Hyde for sure. And Brandon Ayuk versus a bad Eagles defense, if you want to take the flip side of that coin there.
I like that one too, actually.
Yeah. James Robinson, great matchup against the worst rushing defense in the league, the Bengals. I like James Robinson a lot this week. David Johnson, running back for the Houston Texans, and now here's borderline starter or not. There might have been people not starting David Johnson. That's why I said that. I think he's going to have a great week against the Vikings D. Fitzmagic against Seattle's awful pass D. Seattle's pass D is actually way worse than most other ones, and maybe it's because they faced the Cowboys, which was a good passing team, the Atlanta Falcons, which was a good passing team, and can't remember the other one that they beat up on, but it could be that, but I think that Fitzpatrick's going to get some points against the Cowboys D. I think he's a non-starter that should be starting unless you have one of the top 5-6 quarterbacks out there, of course. Devontae Parker, just because of the same reasons, versus Seattle's bad D. Odell Beckham versus Cowboys' bad pass D. The Cowboys' pass D was absolutely atrocious, as you saw last weekend. Odell Beckham is probably going to have a field day out there, and he's going to want that ball. Austin Hooper, same reasons for the Cleveland Browns against the Cowboys' bad D. And I said TJ Hawkinson, tight end for the Detroit Lions. The Saints just can't, for some reason, stop tight ends. You saw you saw Waller, the baller, get so many points against them a couple weeks ago. Well, it's the Saints' weak spot. And the Patriots, when they played the Raiders, the Patriots shut down Waller, but Hawkinson is going to have a great day against the Saints. So for some reason that's just kind of been a trend the last couple of years. Tight ends score well against the Saints. So that's who I have for non-starters trending up, and I have a few busts here, Dave. This one's tough. You probably have to start him, but Derrick Henry versus the Steelers run D. I think the Steelers are only allowing 56 rushing yards per game from opponents. They're number one. So,
crazy.
Oh, it is crazy, isn't it? And Derrick Henry is going to have a tough time. He's big, but he's also has a lot of miles on him the last couple of years. Myles Gaskin versus Seattle's run D. Seattle's pass D is horrible, but Seattle's run D is top 2 or 3, and maybe that's because teams are trying to catch up with Seattle. Maybe, but if that happens again, Myles Gaskin's not going to get the ball as much. Austin Eckler versus Tampa's run D. Tampa's got the third best run D right now. And Austin Eckler, he did get a lot of catches finally last week. I think he had like 11 catches, but I still think he could very much bust against Tampa's run D. Tampa's got a great defensive line. The Redskins' whole team versus the Ravens, and don't start anybody. The Ravens have to be pretty pissed off after tonight, and I'm thinking that the Redskins will be lucky to score 7-8 points. I don't know. Might have to take a Redskins team total under here, but we'll see what happens there. Carson Wentz is a bust also, I wrote, and I know you kind of like him against the Niners, or you like Miles Sanders against the Niners, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like Wentz against anybody right now, really. And then the traveling to the 49ers, where it's kind of like an unders type stadium. Not loving that at all, Dave. Who are your busts?
I forgot to add 1, 2 on the trending up for this week. Alan Lazard, also a guy you might want to take a look at on the waiver wire. He hit over 140 yards and a touchdown this past week with Devontae Adams out. So if Adams is out again, definitely pick up Lazard this week and start him if possible. So he's a trending up guy that I forgot that I left off my list. You had most of the guys that I was looking at already. I agree with you on the Henry one. I don't like Eckler or Joshua Kelly this week either as well. Another guy, Josh Jacobs, I think, could struggle a little bit, and David Carr against the Bills. They have a pretty tough defense. I could see them doing well. I think Nick Foles is actually going to struggle against the Colts defense. The Colts have a very good defense, actually. They've been holding teams to under 20 points these first couple weeks. They haven't really many points. So,
and that's why I mentioned that with Foles. That's why I said pick him up, but don't start him this week, most likely, right?
Yeah.
We both agree on that. And now it could be that the Colts played the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets and the Vikings. I don't know. The Vikings should be able to score, though, right? Delvin Cook. So they didn't. So, probably the Colts D is really good. Darius Leonard's a stud for a linebacker. So I agree with you there, Dave.
And then another one, too, that I had was the New York Giants, pretty much like you were saying with the Washington football team. The Giants are just in shambles right now. They signed Freeman, but he's going to take a couple weeks to get up to speed. The Giants have a favorable schedule after this week, but definitely I've mentioned all the Giants players this week. None of them are worth starting this week as well.
Yeah, the Giants, very tough to start. What the hell happened to Deion Lewis last week, by the way? I think he got one carry or something, Dave.
Yeah, he was non-existent. They gave everything to Gallman and to Freeman. They were feeding them the ball instead.
Whose Wheaties did he piss in
exactly.
on Saturday? I mean, I started Deion Lewis in the league, so I'm pretty bitter about that. He was probably one of our trending up, I think, last week. And, I don't know what the heck happened to him. He filled right in when they played the Bears when Sanders got hurt. It was him that get it. Now they give Now they give it all to Freeman and Gallman. Oh, I'll tell you. I guess Freeman's probably going to be the bell cow back there. You have to guess, right, Devontae?
Yeah, definitely.
Man, what the hell happened to Deion Lewis? Oh, well, maybe he did something stupid in practice. See, a lot of that stuff doesn't get out, and the beat writers don't even get it because a lot of stuff stays in the locker room. And then,
he could have got injured, too. You never know. It could have been a minor injury, too.
Oh, they're supposed to report that. If they did, they're supposed to report that, and they can get fined for not doing that. So I don't know what the hell. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe he was sick. Who knows? Nasty sleeper time, Dave. You do the honors, my man. Who do you got for your nasty sleeper to win our week 4?
Nasty sleeper of the week this week is going to be from the Green Bay Packers, Allen Lazard. With Davante Adams out again, I look for Allen Lazard to have another big game up against the poor Falcons defense.
Is he still out, Adams? Will he still be out for sure?
Possibly going to hold him out this week because they have a bye next week. So they want to give him 2 weeks to rest. So they're saying that they know they're playing Atlanta. So they think they're going to hold him out again this week.
Commandant Lazard. the old police academy movies. Now, so I even think Lazard will do good if Adams plays. So it's just, I think
either way, you're going to be fine against the Atlanta defense.
Yeah. Plus, don't isn't Valdez Scantling a little beat up and that what's the other guy's name? Brown Pope or what's the other guy's name in the Packers? No,
St. Brown. He's
St.
on the injured.
Equimus St. Brown. That's it.
Yeah, he's on the injured list now. He's not even on their roster anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just Valdez Scantling. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah, Lazard would have a huge game then. Oh, I agree with that one for sure. Nasty sleeper for me is James Robinson. I mentioned him as trending up versus the Bengals D. The Bengals D is so bad, but James Robinson not only gets lots of carries with Jacksonville, he also gets a decent amount of targets. If you look at the last game, he got the most targets for all the receivers in Jacksonville, and he's a running back. He got 6 targets, 6 receptions, 83 yards in the air, and he had 11 carries for 46 yards against the Dolphins with 2 touchdowns. I think this could be a huge game for James Robinson. If you're in a DFS league, you might get him cheap. So he is my nasty sleeper, Dave. What are your thoughts?
I like it. I like the James Robinson one. That would have been my other guy if I had the second one.
All right, man. Anything we're missing?
No, I like it.
All right, next week we're going to get into bye weeks. We're always going to talk about who's on bye, and so we can make sure that you guys are prepared for a strong fantasy week, Dave. Thanks a lot for coming on, my man. Everybody have a great rest of your week. If you have any fantasy questions, please feel free to tweet us at the Oddsbreakers, and go get some winners.